Tony has requested me on Patreon to review the horror movie Dream House, which was released in 2011 and starred Daniel Craig. This was a film that did not do much business in theaters, and the critical reviews were largely negative, and it seems to be mostly forgotten now. It also went through major behind-the-scenes difficulties, but I'll get to that later. The plot centers on a man who moves to a house with his wife and daughters and finds out the previous owner, Peter Ward, murdered his family there. For about the first half of the movie, I found it all rather ordinary and not particularly interesting. It was kind of boring, as there's not a whole lot to the main character, Will Attenton, played by Daniel Craig, and the rest of his family are fairly one-dimensional too. The film tries to present this mystery of what happened in that house years earlier, but it lacked the needed tension and intrigue. Even as more is revealed and Will is told more about the place and tries to figure out who Peter Ward is, there's nothing that made me curious about what happened there. Now, this is a movie where I cannot talk about it further without revealing a major twist that occurs about halfway through. Even the marketing team had trouble selling the movie without spoiling it, as the trailer flat out tells us the big revelation. I did not watch the trailer beforehand, so I was able to see the twist revealed in the film itself, although part of me sort of figured it out. Okay, so the big plot twist is that Will is in fact Peter Ward, and he's been imagining his wife and daughter still alive and with new names like him. Like I said, I already noticed a few hints before then. For example, there's a part where Will is glaring at his wife and daughter through the window, which does not match his behavior towards them in any other scene. So I did think, I wonder if there's more to him that has not been revealed yet. Now, following this revelation about his real identity, I did think the movie got a bit more interesting after that, and you start to piece together what's real and what's not. The concept of someone creating an alternate reality for themselves is interesting. I think there's a real fear some of us have that our entire life is an illusion, and maybe we're really in an asylum somewhere, and this taps into that. The way the film plays with that reality is done with some visual creativity, and Craig does well in showing him trying to figure out what is really going on. With that said, the more you think about it, the more a lot of the actions of the other characters don't make a lot of sense. Before it's revealed to him, nobody calls him Peter, including the policeman he talks to about the murders, or the neighbor played by Naomi Watts. Everyone seems to just treat him like he's this other persona until the doctor eventually reveals to him that he's Peter. I also wondered if it was a good idea to even tell Peter his true identity, and I felt the movie could have delved a bit more into the psychological effect of letting him keep this alternate personality as long as possible. He eventually finds out he did not murder his family, and that someone else was responsible, which does turn the film into a tragedy about someone who tried to save his family, failed, and then coped by pretending they were still alive and living a happy life. There's a sadness to what Peter is going through as he regains his memory and realizes his happy times with his family did not actually happen, although he will continue to cherish those moments. I did think the ending became utterly ridiculous, though, as the real villains come in acting all menacing and we get this big explosive fight scene. However, for that middle portion, I was somewhat intrigued and for a while was invested in Peter's dilemma. Something I should mention is Dream House is one of those classic cases where there was a clash between the director and studio. The film is directed by Sheridan, who I admit is a filmmaker I've surprisingly not looked at much. The only other movies of his I've watched are In the Name of the Father and In America. It's been a long time since I've seen In America, but I remember that also being about a father trying his best to raise his family in a difficult environment. So I can see why this script might have attracted it. However, Sheridan and Morgan Creek had a lot of creative disagreements, and while he agreed to do some reshoots, he was not allowed to supervise the finished cut that made it to theaters. As a result, he tried to get his name taken off the movie but did not succeed. He immediately disowned the movie, and even Daniel Craig and Rachel Weisz felt displeased with Dream House. So this is definitely a case where a lot of the problems might not be the director's fault, and watching the film does feel like it's been chopped to pieces in the editing room. Will someone ever decide to release the Sheridan cut? I actually tried seeing if Sheridan has talked about the production since the film's release, but did not find anything. So I don't know whether he has a desire to put together a director's cut, or it's like David Fincher in Alien 3, where he wants nothing to do with the movie anymore. I'm not sure there's a clamoring for director's cut release of a movie that's been largely forgotten, but maybe one day a company like Shout Factory, which has released director's cuts before, might license the rights from Morgan Creek and put something together. The version of Dream House that did get released, though, was a movie with a few interesting ideas, particularly involving its big middle act twist, but struggles to dig deeper into the characters and takes a while to get going. Now, if you've seen the movie, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and thanks for the request, Tony.